Speaker will be Bobby Seale.
Thank you. All right, together. That was great in the 1960s protest movement era when we said we wouldn't take no shit from the racist big power. And in abolishing the death penalty, supporting the freedom of Mumia Abu-Jamal and all the brothers and sisters who are on death row in the United States of America, we have to revolve or understand or internalize a spiritual meaning of what we call revolutionary humanism so that we can move on. I want to talk to you about that tonight. I mean, all these brothers and sisters that brought back here today, who give you the information, who give you the stats and the statistics, who give you the insight and out of the history of lynching and racism and how that's interconnected and interrelated with perpetuating an avaricious, racist, corporate monopoly capitalistic system that exploits us. Understand that and realize it. But when it gets down to getting to the nitty-gritty, this is a great room of people here. Brothers and sisters, people, black, white, blue, red, green, yellow, polka dot. And don't tell me there ain't no polka dot people, because I know some people with some freckles on their face and they're human beings. My point is this here. I want you to get down to the nitty-gritty and think about this. You know, this is the 39th college lecture or framework or speaking framework that I've done across this country since January 15th, Martin Luther King's birthday. If we go back into September the 7th, we're talking 39 plus 22. I'll be in Yale, at Yale tomorrow night. And we talked about, wait a minute, last summer in some of the black expos where I had to go in there and make my speeches about freeing Brother Mumia Abu-Jamal across this country. And last year, we're talking possibly 100,000 people that I'm glad to be able to be here, because people like Leonard Weinglass and all the Black Panther Party members and all the thousands of brothers and sisters who came out back in those days in New Haven back there when we were on trial, me and Sister Erica Huggins, 75,000 brothers and sisters came out there for a whole day of rally, demand the freedom of Sister, and he had Sister Erica Huggins at the time, and all political prisoners. Because they were talking about putting us on death row, putting us in the gas chamber. That's what they were talking about. But how did all that get started? Because the Black Panther Party, really, we evolved in the middle of an already ongoing, massive, nationwide, civil human rights protest movement and an anti-war movement. It was already going on when we popped up in the first place. This whole COINTELPRO, this whole distortion and stereotyping of that history, incooperated with murder, killing, brutality, terrorism, that we stood up against for an objective purpose. We were talking about our constitutional, democratic, civil human rights, rather than a racist, pig power structure lacking in that. That's all we were talking about. That's primarily what we were talking about. And we investigated every other ideological framework you could think of. We popped up, and now some idiots come out here and make some dumb movie called Panther. 90% of which of what you see portrayed on the screen in that movie never happened, never occurred at all. Wait a minute. They were getting ready to release that movie, some USA Today reporter calls me up. Bobby, did you see the movie? I said, yeah, I saw it. What did you think of it? I said, well, 90% of what you see portrayed on the screen never happened and never occurred. Oh, you can't say that. I said, what do you mean mean I can't say it? I said, how old are you anyway? What are you, some kind of reporter or something? Well, I'm 36 years old. I said, man, I was cussing judges out in the courtroom, demanding my Sixth Amendment constitutional right when you was running up and down your daddy's testicle bag. So, I just straighten this little establishment right. I just straighten this little establishment report out. Don't sit up and tell me and the Black Panther Party sisters and brothers who was out there, who made that organization, who organized across the country, who went to the jail, from the campuses to the streets, organizing real programs or organizing unified people around, through the jails, through the courtrooms, and back again. Most people don't even know that the Black Panther Party and all of the courtroom trials and battles across this country we had, 96% of them we won them directly or indirectly. You don't even know that. They don't even tell you that history. It was a good struggle, and we got to keep on struggling. I mean, they tell, this dumb movie said, makes us look like we were street gang types just popped up, you know, we just popped up in the middle of the 60s. That's what they did. They didn't tell you shit about where we were at, where we were coming from. We were a young black intelligentsia at Merritt College in Oakland, California. 10 blocks from the University of California, where the hotbed of free speech movement and other kind of protests was going on all over San Francisco and Bay Area. We were young people who studied, digested backwards, forward, sideways, and catacombs. We had studied and digested our African American people's history of struggle. That's where we came from. Huey Newton was actually a year into NYU Law School by the time we started the Black Panther Party. No, they told you it was hoodlums and thugs, J. Edgar Hoover, Ronald Reagan, Mayor Daley. That's what they did. The politicians, the establishment press took that lead. That's what they told me. They didn't tell you shit about the fact that my father raised me as a carpenter and a builder from age 5. By the time I was 18, I was an architect. I mean, I went to the United States Air Force as a structural repairman on their high-performance aircraft. I remember going out there with them B-52 bombers. I saw them load the A-bombs up. I knew where the A-bomb bunkers were, as the service saw them. The F-105, etc. I had no politics then. Young man living and growing up in the United States of America, hearing about Emmett Till, hearing about growing up as a little kid, hearing about some old low-down nasty dude named Hitler killing and murdering some people all across in Europe, hearing about these things. Just growing up, being lucky, like James Baldwin said, lucky enough to be raised a hunter and a fisherman, and a builder, and an architect. I mean, I was working on those idiots as the Power Structure's Gemini missile program for 2.5 years before I even became political. I didn't know what was happening, but I was there. And one day at Merritt College, I walked across the street, and some group called the Afro-American Association said, they come here today to tell it like it is. Back in those days, we were still so brainwashed, we were still referring to ourselves as colored and Negroes. Colored and Negroes. I'm talking about in the spring semester of 1962, I was an engineering design major, but they told you I was a hoodlum and a thug. That's what they told me. Told you and me and the Black Panther Party members, we were avid readers and researchers. But my point going to this, brothers and sisters. They got the rapping about some Ghana kingdom and Mali kingdom and the history of Africa. They got to mention people like Richard Wright and W.E. Du Bois. I never heard of these people. I never heard of any Marcus Garvey, who started a Black Star shipping lines, etc. They mentioned some people like Nat Turner and some other people who enslaved both. I had never heard of them. I was a 26, turning 27-year-old man at Merritt College, nighttime, full-time, working on the Gemini missile program at Merritt College one day. And it blew my mind. And I read this book by Jomo Kenyatta called Facing Mount Kenya. I read that book that night at my job, Kaiser Aerospace Electronics, in between inspecting those engine frames for the Gemini missile program. I sit and read that book and it blew my mind. From there, I wouldn't let go. The next thing I know, I'm digesting Margot J. Herskovit's Myths of the Negro Past. Then I'm digesting Basil Davis's work, The Slave Trade. Then I even picked up Leroy Jones, now known as Amir Baraka's of Blues People. Now I'm picking up W.E. Du Bois' Black Reconstruction and so on, and so on. And I'm finding out. And then I look up and hear right in 1963 about the Sharpsville massacre that already had happened, and they were sentencing Nelson Mandela to prison in South Africa, 1963, Merritt College, Oakland, California. My first protest was over in front of the South African consulate in San Francisco. Protesting against apartheid and doing that. One day they killed Malcolm X. By this time I didn't quit my job. I dropped my job. I didn't even want to work for the government anymore. I went into the social science. I got into various organizations and groups. I got into a Revolutionary Action Movement group for a year and 3 or 4 months. They were sincere brothers, but I got tired of that armchair revolutionary stuff. These brothers talk and have meetings over and over and over. By the time you finish, I could get in and liberate every motherfucking body in the world and ain't nobody. Now, what did they want to feel? I couldn't deal. Because I was an old architect, I was an old planner, I was an old builder. Once you lay out the plans and design and do all the specs, that's the theory. Now it's time to build it and put it into practice.
I hear you.
That's the way you got to think. They killed Malcolm X and I went and found Huey. I said, Huey, we got to start a new organization named Kill Brother Malcolm X. I had a copy of France Fanon's registered herb in my hand. Huey said, I don't know if we can do that because these black people don't know enough about their African American history. Out of that, I created the Black History Fact Group at Merritt College campus. Put it together, and me and Bertram Morrell and some of the other black students and women and sisters there got our black history in. Then right at that same time, this is all before the Black Panther Party started, around the spring semester of 1966, 29% of the people who were dying on the front lines in Vietnam, he says, is African American, black people. That was in 1966. The anti-war movement protest was already going on. University of California would have 10,000 people in marches. And they were being blocked not to be able to enter Oakland, California. It was in Berkeley and all this kind of stuff. 2 or 3 blocks from my house, my home. I mean, I was right in the middle of this stuff. So I organized a group called Soul Students Advisory Council and packed an auditorium just like this at Merritt College. Tell brothers and sisters we weren't going to fight no goddamn Vietnam War. We done read Herbert Attracker's documentation of all the wars we fought in. It was 168,000 that fought in the Civil War and 30-some-odd thousand died. 350,000 fought in World War I and so many thousands died. 850,000 fought in World War II. It was a journey, and now you come with another goddamn war. We weren't going to fight in no more goddamn war. This is where we were coming from in the 1960s. This is the kind of stuff we organized around. And I recited a poem called Uncle Sammy Called Me Full of Lucifer. And then I created this organization, Soul Students Advisory Council, got 200 some odd students assigned. The next week, we're up at the University of California. And Huey wants me to recite this poem. Because Huey had came to this rally I organized, and he was shocked that I put so many people in the auditorium. Me and Virtual and a lot of people put these people there. Say your poem, say your poem. I said, man, I don't want to say this poem. It's nighttime. University of California, the nightlife scene down. You say this gate there. Why do you get me to say this poem? I stood out there by the parking meter. Said, Uncle Sammy called me full of Lucifer. Well, I don't give a good eagle-eyed, that Cleveland triple whammy, and suddenly I was interrupted by a tall, bushy-headed white guy smoking a big joint and a chair in his hand. Hey, man, hold it. Hold it, man. Wow. We was in front of an outdoor cafe. We'd been sitting there when I first started off, and all these people, hordes of people suddenly stopped when I started the poem. Like, wow, man, I mean, like, you know, I was getting the vibes and the first lines came, man, and like, all of these people, I couldn't see you, man. I said, okay, man, I'll stand on the fucking chair. This is one of the reasons why the Black Panther Party came about, I'm trying to tell you. So the crowd is there. I said, Uncle Sammy called me full of Lucifer. Well, I don't give a good eagle-eyed and that Cleveland triple whammy damn for eye for this false stick will not serve. Uncle Sam, don't shut and jive me. I'm here to pop those ass changes you love. You know damn well what I mean. You school my naive heart to sing red, white, and blue stars and striped songs and to play its eternal allegiance to all things blue, true, blue-eyed, blonde hair, white chalk, white skin, with USA tattooed all over. And my soul trusted Uncle Sam and loved Uncle Sam. And died in dreams as a kid playing war for Uncle Sam. In January, masculine, manhood symbol, diarrhea. A corrupt, unrealty mixing to my ungreased nigger, ghetto black ass, and my Jewish Catholic Hindu Islamic Sioux. What? Sure, free public health penicillin cured me. But Uncle Sammy, if you want to stay a freak show strongman god, fuck your motherfucking self. I will not serve. This crowd went wild. This crowd went wild, more. I get off the chair, some little guy with a crew-cut yellow t-shirt, jeans, walks up to me, grabs my arm. You're under arrest for using obscene language and blocking the sidewalk. We're at the University of California at Berkeley. This was the hotbed of the free speech movement. Mario Savio and the rest of them right around that period. Following Nasty coming. I'm saying, motherfuck you, man. Fucking never heard no fucking free speech. I snapped the way he came. I said, come on, man, let's go. What the hell do you think? Gonna make some damn citizens arrest or some shit? Fuck you. This uniform cop makes his way to the back of the crowd to grab my coat. Huey says, leave him alone. He's done nothing. I snatched out of the coat, yellow t-shirt attacks me, his head in my stomach, knocks the wind out of me, wrestles me to the ground. Huey said, leave him alone, he's done nothing. Well, naturally the crowd says, right, leave him alone, he's done nothing. Wait a minute. They're still chanting, leave him alone, he's done nothing. I'm down here wrestling and tussling with yellow t-shirt. The people across the street walking up down the street suddenly stop and they start saying, leave him alone, he's done nothing. Leave him alone. The next damn thing you know, they're all the way up the block. Those people didn't see what the hell went down. Leave him alone, he's done nothing. In those days, you could start a protest movement at the drop of a hat. Anyway, they beat him off me, and I got the guys off me, and Huey boxed this policeman. The cop just didn't know what he was in for, you know. Cop swinging at Huey. He went to a little golden gloves training, you know what I mean? I mean, you know, you're young and you act like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard, you know what I mean? You can go counterclockwise with somebody all in a rhythmatic form. And before you know it, pop, 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 and he stands back in, the cop's looking again, then he wants to move, pop, pop, take that too. Man, really fought. Anyway, we got arrested that night. We went to jail. I can't believe this. You gave me a note.
Don't worry about it. Go.
Look, brothers and sisters, let me say something. There's so much history there. Let me get serious here so we can understand some true history here. A little bit, get an inkling of it. We got busted. With me and you getting busted, we went to court. On a no contest plea, we got probation. I told you we had to go ahead and find, get our organization started in the grassroots community. We went to the North Oakland neighborhood center where I worked and where I was employed by the city government in the Warren Poly office. At night, we had the keys to the office and wrote to 10-point platform and program. We did not have a name for the organization when we first started. Called for full employment, another decent housing, decent education, and another point into the exploitation by avaricious racist capitalists in our black communities. And police brutality and murder of black people was point number 7. When all black brothers and sisters were brought to trial and be tried by a jury with juries of their peers, and all black brothers and sisters had already been tried by all white juries have a right to another trial. I mean, basically, when you look at that whole thing, of course, what we want, what we believe, and even it's changed levels. I mean, we were just outlining something that's already been being called for all many, many years before it even got to us. It was the same thing. It was an extension of Du Bois and Nat Turner and stuff like this, you know. Because as a young man to read Herbert Apthacker's work documenting 250 slavery revolts. And they taught me in high school that black folks love slavery. Well, they sit on the street and take advantage of them. It's the shit they taught me. But I mean, it goes beyond just my African-American people's history of struggle. Our African-American people's history of struggle is interconnected and interrelated with all human liberation on the face of the earth. Yeah. One of the reasons why our slogan was all power to all the people. Huey P. Newton and I took the word black, and they said black power was to me a whole lot of rhetoric. Took the word black over here for a minute, with the word power. And we came up with this, that power is the ability to define phenomena, then in turn make it act in a desired manner. Well, these brothers here, Little Wayne Glass, man, and Marvel, all of them, have given you some definitive understanding of the phenomena of this wholesale state operated murder operation of the death penalty in the United States, and how it's interconnected with that history of that same exploitation that we were arguing against back at that time. They were already brutalizing and beating up and killing and murdering and terrorizing peaceful protesters all across this country before we even came about. We were not against peaceful protests. We were against the racists and the government and others who was brutalizing, shooting, and murdering the peaceful protest, as Huey used to say, because Huey was in NYU Law School, exercised the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, that all citizens have the right to stand and register if they agree with his peace. That's where Huey was coming from. That's where he would say that he was a nervous guy who needed to be very precise, you know what I mean? And I'm just saying that's where we were coming from. So we decided we would defend ourselves. People went out and tell you that, oh, they just picked up some guns. That's not true. We trained those brothers and sisters. I was one of the ones in the military. Big man Elvin Howard was one of the brothers. We trained how to break the guns down. They had to know the 10-point platform and program. I was the one who got the long, extensive reading list and had the political education session with those first 12 or 14 brothers and sisters we had in the Black Panther Party. That junk you see on the screen with the movie Panther is bullshit. The bullshit and Shadow of a Panther is bullshit. The bullshit that even Sister Elaine Brown wrote in her book Takes Power is bullshit. I know it's bullshit because I was there, and I can produce 1,000 former party members or 102. It was the coalition politics that with all power to all the people, power is the ability to define phenomena in that sense. Understanding and having a class analysis also, not only the history of the race analysis of race suppression, but the class analysis. When we crossed that, when we created a coalition with the Peace and Freedom Party, when we created a coalition with SDS, when we created a coalition with the Young Lords, Puerto Rican brothers, when we created a coalition with the Chicano brothers of Brown Berets, when we created a coalition with poor working class white brothers, young people who was coming out of the Appalachian Mountains, the young patriots, and they coalesced with us. When we got coalesced and got the movement, that is the real period in which J. Edgar Hoover, the power structure, the politicians, moved to attack every Black Panther Party office in the United States of America. That is the year we created the United Front Against Fascism Conference framework. Well, people came from all across this country, became involved in a broad scheme of getting some mass movement going, standing on the principles of constitutional, democratic, civil, human rights, investigating any and all kinds of ideas. We investigated. What kind of new economic practices will we have in the future? Will it be socialism? I rejected state-controlled socialism, but I accepted constitutional democratic socialism. I like cooperative community-controlled socialism. I am allowed for the possibility of market economy socialism merged together, so I came up with community-controlled economy, empowerment of the people from the grassroots up, but with programs. That's what we were about. Grassroots, real programs that unify people around in the grassroots poor and low-income communities. And the power structure went after us. By the end of 1969, 28 of my Black Panther Party members were dead. 14 policemen were dead, too. There's wounded 68 of us, and 38, some of them were wounded, too. They arrested us, they put us in jail from the Brothers to New York 21 all the way back, you name it, all across this country. We had 45 chaps in prison. At one time, at the end of 1968, following the death of Martin Luther King and Bobby Hutton, in that 6-month period, prior to Martin Luther King's death, there was no more than 400 Black Panther Party members. Huey was sitting in jail. And I moved in coalition and working with Fred Hampton and others, and we organized 5,000 active members of the Black Panther Party by the end of 1968 all across this country in 45 chapters and branches, complete with free breakfast for children programs, preventative medical health care, 6-17 testing programs, etc. Now, that was a lot of spirit. A lot of young brothers and sisters got out of college, left college. They were so pissed that Martin Luther King didn't kill. And pissed also because it was high profile then when Brother Bobby Hutton, the first Black Panther Party member, was killed. Free, Huey, and organize the people, all power to the people. It was about revolution. It was about changing this power structure. And on the democratic level, if we could get it, if you take away our Constitution, democratic, civil, human rights, and you drive us on the ground, yes, we will wage guerrilla warfare because we stand for Constitution, democratic, civil, human rights. They've been weeding away and trying to take them away. But if you, us, all of you do not get involved, you must understand and get new models, get new scientific, evidentiary, factual information that you got here today, specifically as it's related to the death penalty and the politics behind it, and move to that higher level of being revolutionary humanists. You see, I'm not a black nationalist. But do I believe in black unity? Yes, I believe in black unity, but only as a catalyst to help humanize the world. Yeah. Do I believe in Wait a minute, do I believe in Native American people's unity? Yes, but as a catalyst to help humanize the world. Oh, yeah. I mean, I follow a person like Nelson Mandela, who unequivocally will state and work and sacrifice and state a non-racist society, and goes further in the whole meaning of human liberation and say a non-sexist society. You're talking about being a revolutionary humanist when you internalize this meaning. So when we start talking about ending the death penalty and getting behind and seeing to it that Mumia Abu-Jamal is not killed, every last one of you can talk to 20 or 100 people in the next few months to get them involved on one level or another. This is the revolutionary humanistic spirit you have to understand. In other words, all of this human liberation struggle, all the struggle that African American people have done, inclusive of other Native Americans and other ethnic groups have done for civil human rights in this country, it is not about revenge. It is not about jumping up saying, Nelson Mandela needs to kill all the white folks in South Africa. It's not about that. That's not about what it's about. Our struggle is the opposite of Hitlerism. It is the opposite of racist Nazi thing. It is the opposite of corporate monopoly capitalism, using a political structure and a political system to move its legislative frameworks, to perpetuate and confuse the people, at the same time make them fear. It blows my mind how so many people have been used through the media to be so upset about crime when crime is lowering. Nobody looks at that. Kill them all, lock them up, throw them away from there. Kill them all, lock them up, throw them away. This is the whole mentality, and we've got to revolutionize this consciousness of America. It is about all of us participating on one level or another and doing that. 3,000 years ago, most human beings on the face of this earth believed the earth was flat. Therefore, their ideas about the shape of the earth did not correspond correctly to reality. If a person still thinks with racist notions and perpetuates them, and we know scientifically from scientific factual evidence, including all male and female and all the 6 billion living human beings on the face of this earth, we are only, from scientific and factual evidence we can prove and show, only 2% different. That includes the differences biologically and between even male and female. Against all hues, all colors, hair, we're only 2% that we're 98% biologically similar to the same. This human liberation struggle, which involves abolishing the death penalty, is not disconnected, it is interconnected. It's about us creating a future world of cooperational humanism, of decent human relationships, evolving some new economic practices that make human sense, some political institutional frameworks that make human sense. An educational institutional framework that makes human sense. It's about revolutionary humanism. So, at the tail end of the 10-point platform program that me and Huey wrote in October 1966 in the Warm Poverty Office in North Oakland, California, I decided to paraphrase a famous, 2 paragraphs of a famous document. It said, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for all humanity to separate and or abolish the political bondage that we are connected with, a decent respect to the opinions of humankind dictate that they should declare the causes which impel them to that separation, or the need to abolish that. In the latter part of the second paragraph it says, when a long train of abuses, think about all these hundreds of years of lynching, murder, death, penalty, murder, pursues and invariably evinces a design to reduce a people under absolute despotism, then it is the right of the people to keep us to alter or change that government and provide new guards for our future security. We have to provide new guards for a future world of cooperation and humanism, of decent human relationships. All power to the people. Thank you very much.
One of the last speakers tonight will be reading a statement that Mumia Abu-Jamal wrote for us this evening. It's very important to hear what he has to say. Somebody who can't be here tonight because he is languishing right now on death row. The next speaker will be Sherry Wolf, and then we'll have Mumia's statement.
All right, well, I'm not going to be telling you anything already. I'm just going to get right down to the point. Because the fact is that Bobby Seale is a living example that a little bit of history is a very powerful thing in the hands of people who want to get out there and fight. And I do believe that people in this room want to get out there and fight. And you can't fight if you don't know, if you don't know a little something about what happened the last time the abolition of the death penalty movement took place in this country. Because in 1972, when the death penalty was last abolished, I'll tell you something, the lawyers for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the American Civil Liberties Union were essentially the shock troops of the movement. There was no movement in this country. There wasn't a mass movement in this country at any point. So that at the point when the Supreme Court overturned the death penalty in 1972, the public opinion in this country was well over 75% for the death penalty. Public opinion, 3/4 for the death penalty at a time when it was overturned. And that's precisely why 2 years after the death penalty was overturned, 16 states went ahead and got around the procedural abolition and imposed mandatory death sentences. 4 years later, without mass social pressure, the Supreme Court was able to go ahead and reimpose mandatory death sentences, go ahead and reimpose the death penalty in this country, so that 20 years later, we have 38 states with the death penalty. That's the story of the death penalty. That's what happens without a mass activist movement in this country against the death penalty. It's not enough to leave it to the attorneys. Wonderful, great committed as they may be. There's too few of them, and we need a mass movement. That is the essence of what I just want to say. And I think a lot of people came here tonight asking, why should I get involved in this particular movement? What is the urgency around stopping the death penalty? And there's some legitimate reasons for that, because after all, let's face it, we live in a country that feels like going home in a handbasket. We have a healthcare nightmare in this country. We live in a situation of the greatest gap between rich and poor that has ever existed in the industrial age, right here, the jewel in the crown of world capitalism, right here in the United States. We live in a country with the most offensive and indefensible immigrant bashing and the most noxious racism that is imaginable. Why should people get involved in this cause? Why get involved now? What is the urgency here? And I think it's very simple. Because the reality is we cannot leave public opinion to the behalf of the Pat Buchanans and the Rudy Giulianis in this world. And, or even the Bill Clintons, for that matter, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it is absolutely. I think we have to say that we are not visible enough. We are not vocal enough. There is not enough militant, anti-racist people who are seekers of true democracy out there in the streets to make the kind of impact that we need to make if we truly do want to end the death penalty in the next few years. And the fact is that the death penalty exposes all of the garbage of American society, all of the garbage, all of the racism, all of the oppression of poor people, all of the indiscriminate barbarism of this society is exposed through the death penalty. We know, people have put out all the statistics and what have you. I'm not going to re-raise them. We know that the death penalty does absolutely nothing to alleviate the social conditions that create crime in society. We know that the death penalty has absolutely nothing to do with lowering the crime rate in society, which is already going down, and that's according to the FBI's own statistics. And people are very right to ask, why are they imposing the death penalty now? What is the reason for the death penalty being imposed in this country at this point in time? And I think that the evidence points to one thing, that a profit-driven society that is in bankruptcy needs scapegoats. It's just that simple. The reality is, it is very easy to try and get people's attention diverted to thinking that it is young blacks and Latinos in this country who are causing all the problems, when in fact you take a look up the scale, and not across it out here, but up at corporate America and what they are doing. And according to their own statistics from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, every single day in this country, 17 working people are killed on the job. That is a reality. That isn't mass murder. I don't know what is. And that's being caused by Phillips Petroleum, by Alcoa, by every accident. Those are the mass murders. I guarantee you, they'll never face death penalty, and they'll never face jail, but they'll face perhaps as a tiny little fine, which is a pittance to people who are making billions off of killing people. That's essentially what's about. And the reality is that the Democrats, who for far too long have masqueraded around as the defenders of the oppressed, have basically turned to get tough politics because they don't have anything else to show for them. After 4 years in power, what we have is increasing immiseration, increasing poverty, and not a whole hell of a lot else. So basically, what the conclusion I draw from that is we cannot be duped this time. This is an election year. We cannot leave it to the politicians. There are no white knights coming over the hill. There are no black knights coming over the hill. We are our own saviors here. Bill Clinton today signed that bill that basically said that 6 months after you've been sentenced to death row, you have no recourse. If you have not filed an appeal, that's it. Your head's off, whether you're innocent or not. That would mean the death of some of the men who are on this panel tonight. Let's keep that in mind. Carol Moseley Brown, the first black female senator in the United States, is the one who was clamoring hardest to get 13-year-olds included under the those who can be executed in this country. That is disgraceful. That is obscene. But that is true. And that's why we can't look to the politicians to take this one on. They are not going to be our saviors here. They are not going to be our saviors. A lot of people obviously came here tonight, not just because they oppose the death penalty, but they wanted to hear from people who've been involved in struggle before. Certainly people like Bobby Seale, Leonard Weinglass, who've been involved and in the trenches before. And that's a great thing. But let's remember what it is that they're saying. They're saying that mass struggle, that broad-based movement, that active involvement in struggle is the only way that we can make a change in this world. There's no other alternative. It's not a luxury, it's not an assign, it's not a nice thing you might also want to do. It's the thing that's going to change this world, and it's what we have to do. We have to take those lessons from the past and apply them to the struggles of today. That is what Bobby Seale is leaving us the legacy of. Apply those lessons. Don't look at them in awe. Make them better. Make them better. People should sign on those cards. And yes, we do need donations. It's not also an added extra. Unfortunately, we do live in a society in which we have to pay for rooms like this at private institutions like NYU. I don't mind saying they're charging us a hell of a lot for this room. We need some money in order to be able to build this movement. But I think that we also have to be able to say that we are not going to allow people to tell us that the political climate out there is too right-wing for us to win this right now. Nonsense. Do not forget, in 1972, the man sitting in the White House, Richard Milhouse Nixon, was a warmongering, racist, criminal, lying, cheating bastard who actually, despite him, even with him in that White House, we managed to get rid of the death penalty. Even with him in the White House, we managed to expand welfare rights. Even with him in the White House, we managed to get abortion rights in this country. That's not politics. That's the smoke and mirrors game that goes on in Washington. This is politics. What you do is politics. I joined this battle as a socialist because basically I think that those are the politics that explain what's going on in the world today and how to fight it. But you don't have to be a socialist in order to get involved, but you do need to get involved. That is the only option you have unless you're going to find yourself on the short end of the stick one of these days. Because basically, we are only as our weakest link. And without a doubt, those 3,000 men and women who are sitting on death row right now, who are, not all of them moral and heroic characters like Mumia, but frankly, all of them poor, and every single one of them victims of institutionalized stupidity and violence, they are our weakest link. I want you to join the new abolitionist movement in this country. I want you to get involved in saving the lives of people like Chuck and Lawrence, because basically together we can make history. We don't have to be victims of it.
Good evening, everyone. This is my first time speaking in public. My name is Trevor Palmer from the College of New Rochelle. That's in the New York Theologian Seminary. You know, Sherry, you should be preaching. I'm here to read a letter that Mumia has sent. And I think the reason that they asked me to do this was I'm probably emotional. Dear friends, I would not surprise any of you if I spoke a sober truth. Hey, you all, you've got your work cut out for you. For America is adrift in a spiraling death culture. Politicians push death as they once pushed polio shots as a panacea for all that ails a social order in decline. And the public, their minds roiling from the latest TV drama, latched on to this, the latest hero. Truth be told, the death penalty is in decline in all the areas of the world that this empire claims descent and inspiration from, Britain, France, and Italy, and indeed the entire European community. In the matter of death, the U.S. remains, for all intents and purposes, a third-world nation, where the state enforces ethnic and tribal discord under the knot of the youth. What a welcome for the dawning of the 21st century. In all recorded in prehistoric time, this has been the boldest century. With omnious new technologies and with the unleashing of ugly, ancient, racial, ethnic, and tribal hatred among men, will the 21st century rival the 20th? That said, this is not occasion for despair. The very fact that you exist, that you are here, that you are standing in opposition to legalized state murder is a good thing, a wonderful thing indeed. You, all the sponsors and supporters of the campaign to end the death penalty in New York, are to be commended, for you are on the right side of history. Time will mark you all as true visionaries, Lacan to life, and more.